Hey, what's up, stock compounders? Brad here. So it is that time of the week again for our weekly Q&A. We got a ton of questions this week for the Q&A. 112 comments. Now, bear in mind, about a half of these are from a channel impersonating me. So if you guys see that stuff and you have an extra second, flag it, okay? Report it, because that helps me keep it under control. I know it's an issue that's happening with a lot of channels. But again, I would appreciate all of your support with that issue. Any channel that looks like mine but has a WhatsApp number or is trying to sell you something or some trading system, it's not me, okay? Just so you know. So with that out of the way, let's dive into the questions this week. How are you feeling about being down 30% on Alibaba? It tests me, okay? And the way that it tests me is I have FOMO, to be honest. As the price is dropping, I wish I had saved some of that dry powder when I initially bought in. To buy some as it went down. Of course, we don't know in advance what a stock is going to do after we buy it. So just as easily, I could have bought, kind of inched in a little bit when I first bought, and then the price could have just as easily run up, okay, and run away from me. So, I've just got to learn to deal with the situation when that happens, when it drops, especially when it drops as significantly as it has with Alibaba. I haven't added more. I may add more, but I haven't done that yet. But it's just been interesting to watch, my own emotions kind of play out as Alibaba has dropped lower and lower. But I'm still as happy as an Alibaba owner now as when I initially bought in. So just got to learn how to deal with what comes up as it comes up. Any ideas for what Pabrai and the others will be adding next? In other words, what's high up on your watch list? I don't have any idea about what Pabrai is going to buy next. That's one of the exciting things about 13F season is that, I have no idea what's going to show up on the 13Fs. I had no idea that Guy Spear was going to buy into Daily Journal in the second quarter. It's very exciting, not knowing what's coming next. What's high up on my watch list? I started a position in Prosus, which, owns a lot of Tencent. Micron is something that's high on my watch list, thinking of buying more Micron. And, Alibaba, obviously. So that's plenty to have right now that I'm thinking about adding to. I don't need any more than a couple that are high up there. A lot of activity recently. Hey Brad, I'm 90% invested with 10% on the sidelines. How do you decide how and when to allocate the last 10%? Do you spread it between current investments or more focused on one or two? What is your allocation criteria? So personally, I like to have about 20% bets at cost. The last 10%, the way I like to have some cash ready to deploy at all times. So that last 10%, it would take something very compelling. Potentially what's happening with Alibaba now, if I hadn't gone in so fully when I originally bought in. Like I said, I may still add to it. We're going to see what happens. But yeah, I definitely wouldn't be eager to deploy that last 10%. Presumably you have money that's coming in, unless you're in retirement, money continuously coming into the portfolio, which means that last 10% is going to continue to be replenished. But I don't know your financial situation, Michael. But yeah, I like to wait until there's an obvious opportunity. I really only have 3 full positions in my portfolio. So I've got some cash waiting to be deployed. It's a tricky thing. It's a tricky thing to know, when to put that last bit of cash to work. For me, it's a pretty high bar to put that last bit of cash to work, but I don't have any magic formula for that. Hey, Brett, it seems like nearly every value investor is backing up the truck on Baba. It does seem that way. I suspect even more after they next disclose holdings. Can you recall any time in history when so many super investors were buying one stock? At the same time, how did that stock pan out? So I've only been really kind of heavy in individual stock picking for probably the last 2 or 3 years. Okay. This is the most that I've seen super investors loading up on one company since I started employing that strategy, in the last 2 or 3 years. It's pretty impressive seeing how many are quite bullish on Alibaba. And it's part of what makes it really interesting is that these are primarily US-based investors who are loading up on a Chinese company, right? So that's, I'd be surprised if that's ever really happened for so many US investors to be loading up, not just on a company outside of the US, but a Chinese, large tech company. So it's a very interesting situation. It's going to be fascinating to see how it plays out. I've never quite seen anything like this, but again, I haven't been observing sort of the situation, the game with the 13F filings for all that long. So I can't give any anecdotes about how it panned out, unfortunately. But if any of you can, let us know in the comments. That would be interesting to sort of look historically how that has gone. Hey, Brad, thanks for sharing your insights on investing. It's been illuminating. Fantastic. I love hearing that. Any temptation in buying Pinduoduo? It's currently around the price Lilu bought in. That in and of itself is compelling. If I recall, it's not a very high conviction position for Lilu. I think it's just like, I don't have to guess. I can actually look this up. But I was thinking it was around 5% of his US holdings, which are just a fraction of his total, assets under management. But let's take a look. So yeah, 2.25% of just the US piece. So very low conviction in my opinion. It'll be very interesting since prices are down near where he originally bought in, if we see an increase in Q3 once we get the next 13F coming out. But it's not a company I've done much work on, so it's not really on my watch list at the moment. They all seem to be priced very well right now, particularly Naspers and Tencent and Alibaba. They seem cheap, but I'm in the US. This is playing out in China. There's a lot that I don't know, just because of that. Fingers crossed. Excited for this Q&A with stuff going on in the market. Yeah, lots happening in the market right now. We have a 2-part question here. Have you been keeping track of ASOS? This is a company that Nick Sleep bought. I think it was back in 2018. Amazon had become 70% of his, wealth. And that got him a little bit uncomfortable. It was too much to have in one business. So he sold off half of his Amazon position and put that into ASOS, which is a company listed in London. It's sort of the Amazon of fashion, is I believe how it's been described. I haven't looked at it, pretty quickly. I decided ASOS, it's just really outside of my sort of interest and area of knowledge, being a fashion company. I am the furthest thing from fashion that exists. I'm quite comfortable saying that. So it just, I didn't go very deeply into ASOS. Number 2, Baba had been coming down rapidly. Have you been adding? Like I said earlier, I have not, just because I put on a full position, a 20% position, around $227 per share. And I do hesitate to add after I've put on a full position. Even though, you can easily make the argument that as it gets cheaper, you're getting a better deal, right? You're just buying a stake in a company, and that sort of sticker price is dropping. But, I haven't added more. It's possible that I will again soon. I'm still kind of feeling into that whole situation. It's more of a gut thing at this point than it is sort of a rational, pre-factored in situation. Yeah, I'll probably make more Baba content soon, just to share more about concerns and all that. Hypothetically, on market crash where all S&P 500 companies are 50% down, which company would you buy? Well, I don't have a snapshot sense right now where each of the S&P 500 companies are trading with respect to what I think they're worth. So, that plays a big role in, if they all drop 50%, it's not necessarily that they're all going to be equally attractive, right? Or that I'd want to factor in, after they drop, what is that sort of upside to downside ratio as I understand these businesses. But right off the bat, Berkshire Hathaway, if Berkshire Hathaway fell 50%, I think it's maybe trading around 290 or something. I haven't looked at it super recently, but if it dropped down to below 150 for the B shares, that would get me pretty excited to be buying into Berkshire Hathaway. And I'm sure the same would be true of Buffett and Munger. They would be buying back stock hand over fist if Berkshire got that low. So right off the top, that's something that comes to mind. Munger and Buffett talk about opportunity cost and bet seldom but bet heavy. True. Can you explain how they sized their positions before they had the big money, back when they were managing smaller sums? Would they keep cash around besides payables if they had one great business selling at a fair price? So I haven't done much research on Buffett and Munger in the early days in terms of, how they thought about bet sizes and capital allocation, all of that stuff. So I don't know. That would probably be a better question for Christopher Bloomstrand or Adam Mead, who just wrote a book on the history of Berkshire Hathaway. So I don't think I can add much value here, but interesting question. What's your take on Seritage? Still an attractive value proposition? Are you adding to your current position under the assumption SRG is still in your portfolio? It is. It's one of those high conviction bets that I bought around $10 per share. I think that was middle of last year, so it's been a little over a year since I've owned that. I haven't added to the position. It's up 40% right now from that $10 buy price. I'm still very bullish on it over the next 5 to 10 years. It's probably an attractive price now, but I haven't added to it. Honestly, if I were going to add to anything right now, Alibaba or Micron would be higher on the list than Seritage Growth Properties. But I still do like it. I'm glad, I'm very happy that I own it. What is something you would recommend someone who wants to be a fund manager like Pabrai to do? Yeah, the first thing you'd want to do is generate 50% annual returns for 10 years or so, right? Prove to the world, and more importantly, prove to yourself that you can add value as a fund manager, right? That you can excel at that activity of managing money. That's the biggest thing. And at that point, if you're generating 50% returns for 10 years, you're not going to be a fund manager because you need the money, right? You're going to be financially free after a decade if you're generating those kinds of returns. So I guess my question back to you would be, why do you want to be a fund manager? Okay. If it's to become wealthy, that's probably, you're probably better off just becoming wealthy by actually investing your own money. That's what Pabrai's advice would be, and I resonate with that advice as well. Can you do a deep analysis on Micron or Taiwan semiconductors? Would interest to learn more about the industry. Yes, a week ago during the Q&A, I said I would put out an analysis video on Micron. I've been chipping away at it. I've been doing the work. It's not quite ready yet, but I will put something out on Micron. No plans to put something out on Taiwan semiconductors. So sorry it's taking longer than I thought it would, but that's coming soon. In a scenario where all your stocks get sold and you're left with only cash, that would make me sad. How would your portfolio look if you had to reinvest? I run this scenario through my head, and my higher conviction stocks are bigger positions, whereas stocks I already have big gains on are less so. So that's not quite how I would think about it, but I could see why you think about it that way. Does this mean I should sell? Should I think about redistributing my funds? Let's just take sort of the initial question here. So if all the stocks are sold, I'm left with only cash. Honestly, at this point in the market, based on where my holdings are price-wise, it probably wouldn't be all that different. I'd probably put 20% into Seritage, 20% into Micron, 20% into Alibaba. Yeah, the way I'm trying to invest, what I'm hoping to end up with in my portfolio is companies that I want to own for a long time. Okay? And those are 3 companies that I believe I'm going to own for a long time, at least 5 to 10 years, hopefully more. I reserve the right to sell those at any time. I'm not telling you guys this to drill in any kind of biases to hold, in the event that new information becomes available. I want to incorporate that and act appropriately on it. But yeah, it would look pretty much the same if I had to cash out and then decide from there at square one. Hey Brad, have you looked into Micron and bought it again yet? I have been digging in. Yes, I have not added to it yet, but I'm considering doing so. What would be your new target price? Honestly, I'm pretty happy with the current price, around $71 per share. I'll give you guys a little sneak peek. I think Micron is probably going to triple over the next 4 years. Okay. So, for a lot of you, for me, that's a pretty compelling rate of return on Micron if that pans out. So And of course, I'll go much more into detail about why I think that's going to pan out over the next handful of years. But 70 is pretty attractive to me. What your viewpoint on Tencent Holdings, keeping in mind it's generating more cash and have better gross and operating margins than Baba? Also, would you consider buying it at these levels, more than 30% down? So I have started buying into Prosus, which, is a way to access Tencent with some potential additional upside through Prosus as I see it. But yeah, I think, if you're looking for new investment ideas and you haven't looked at Tencent, it's probably a compelling company to dig into, assuming you're also comfortable investing in China. Is Redbubble still on your radar? It is not. I did a little work on Redbubble, quickly came to the conclusion that it was overpriced, or it had run up just too much, and I was no longer comfortable with the upside to downside picture with Redbubble. So yeah, Rosenblum does still seem bullish on it. I think it's a fairly large position for him. So it may even be the largest position for him. So may also be worth digging into. Have you looked into Coupang, CPNG in Korea at all? Seems potentially like a multi-bagger. Yep, it potentially is, but definitely risk there, an execution that needs to continue. Yeah, I think where people potentially get into trouble is making bets on these companies that call themselves the Amazon of, X country or whatever. You guys, Amazon, it is incredible what Amazon has been able to do, okay? There's a lot of talk about this company being, a lot of comparisons to Amazon. But if you really, lift up the hood on Amazon and go deep, I mean, it is just remarkable what Amazon has done. So I get weary when I hear these comparisons being made. I've never invested in Korea, so there would be, a fair bit of getting up to speed on the culture and the, what do we call it? The ecosystem that Coupang operates in. So I haven't gone there yet. I know Pabrai was also asked about Coupang. He hasn't gone. There's a lot of opportunity right in front of me right now in terms of the companies that I previously mentioned. So probably not anytime soon will I take a look at Coupang unless one of the investors that I follow closely makes a fairly high conviction bet on Coupang. If that happens, that will be the trigger to potentially get me over the hump and spend some time with that company. But until then, I don't feel compelled to really spend much time on that. Are you worried about Chinese government's multi-year crackdown on tech companies? What do super investors think about the margin of safety on Alibaba? Well, they seem to like it based on recent activity, both in Q1 and Q2 of 2021. I'm not really worried about it. I like how Pabrai framed it. He said in China, it's innovation and then regulation, okay, versus in Europe and the US. And so this, to Pabrai, and I think a lot of these other great investors, this is just how things unfold in China. And it's temporary, as I see it, as I think a lot of these great investors see it. This is the nature of markets, right? The nature of markets is to overshoot on both the greed end and the fear end. And I think what we're seeing is overshooting on the fear end. So, of course, I could be wrong. This is not investment advice. That's how I'm seeing the situation. If you had a magic ETF cloning Pabrai's portfolio, would you buy in instead of picking stocks manually? If not, why? That's a cool question. A magic ETF. Well, I want to know, what are the fees for this ETF, right? What's the expense ratio? What am I paying to have this magic ETF? If it was free, right, there's no frictional cost. Yeah, maybe I would. Maybe I would. Maybe I would at least put a piece of the portfolio into that. It's not just Pabrai that I clone, but it might be kind of cool to have access to some of his holdings, in India and Turkey and Korea that I can't buy directly. If I could get access to that through an ETF cloning him, that may make it particularly compelling. So yeah, I would entertain that. I once found a website for looking at if management was buying or selling shares in a business. Each line showed the individual person and their activity. I've forgotten what the website is called. Do you know a good website? Yeah, I use openinsider.com. You just type a ticker and it shows you all of the insider activity going years back. And it's kind of color-coded based on sell or buy. I think if there's been insiders that are buying, it's green. Insiders that are selling, it's like yellow or red, depending on if it was options that were exercised or if it was just direct sales. So check out Open Insider, and I'm sure there's many others. Would you consider showing a spreadsheet of your entire portfolio on a video? You guys basically know what I own. I don't feel a particular need to do that. Really what I want this channel to be is kind of teaching you and teaching myself principles of investing, right? Sort of timeless principles of investing. And I don't think telling you guys what I own does that, right? It doesn't serve my community to every month or whatever just show a pie chart of what I own. I think it may be getting more into the ego realm, which I don't have much interest in. There's enough other areas of my life that activate my ego. I don't need to pursue that on this channel. So yeah, probably not, but thanks for the question. What keeps you calm when you have taken a position in a stock and it falls another 30 to 40%? If your bet size was already maximum, don't you feel like adding more since it has become much dearer? Yeah, I do. I feel like adding more Alibaba. There's a part of me that wishes I didn't just buy all in right away. But of course that can work against me in other situations. So I've just gotta learn to live with that. What keeps me calm? Not following it, quite honestly. Which is hard when I'm on Twitter and I'm on the channel and you guys are asking about it, which is fine, right? That's what we have here. That's what we do. We talk about what's happening in the markets. But I think the best thing is to just, take a break from it, right? Really dig into, all right, what do I want to learn right now? What companies do I want to dig into? What skills do I want to improve? And just focus on reading and learning rather than, constantly tracking something that, isn't necessarily actionable. That's my best advice. And it's why a lot of great investors live outside of New York City, right? Omaha, and, I was just, who is it? Chuck Acre lives in like a small town with one stoplight. He's not the active manager anymore. But some small town in like North Carolina, right? I think there's a lot to be said for that. Just being able to control what comes in. And if you don't want to hear about Baba today, you don't have to, because you're controlling what's coming in. Given Ted Weschler's outstanding investment track record, have you considered deep diving into Ted and Todd's assumed investment decisions in Berkshire with the hope of finding a nugget? Thanks. Yeah, that's an interesting question. So Ted Weschler, I would guess that a lot of that investment track record was really juiced by his performance in the early years when he was managing smaller sums. Okay. When I look at Berkshire Hathaway's portfolio, we don't know exactly what Ted did, what Todd did. I mean, we can kind of tell by how big of a position it was. But that's not really a game I'm playing. I mean, I'm looking at Berkshire, and I want the high conviction bets, right? To me, that's really how I clone. So it's hard to know what Ted is doing. And again, he's managing a fair bit of capital, right? Even though he's not managing as much as Buffett, his investment ideas are much more limited today in terms of what he can invest in than they were for the majority of that IRA, the Roth IRA, I believe, which is being referred to here. So not somebody I'm currently trying to clone. Do you have a life-changing investment opportunity? So the first thing that came up when I said this is, when I read this, I've been listening to Naval a lot, Naval Ravikant, the Almanac of Naval Ravikant. Money isn't going to solve all your problems, all right? It'll solve your money problems, but most of what gets in between me and happiness doesn't have to do with money. So when I see life-changing investment opportunity, to me that's a little bit hyped. I don't think any investment opportunity is really going to change my life. My basic needs are met. I've got everything that I need. I don't worship money. So with all that said, no, there's nothing that I think, oh, this is going to be like a 1000x opportunity, or like buying Bitcoin back in 2010, or when did it come out? 29? I don't even know. Nothing like that. I'm just trying to hit. I'd love to double my money every couple of years. That's sort of the high bar. And nothing that's going to vastly exceed that in terms of what I'm looking at now. SoftBank owns around 25% of Alibaba. What can you tell us about their relationship? One place you might find out more about that is a book called Alibaba, the House That Jack Ma Built. It talks a little bit about how SoftBank was an early investor in Alibaba and kind of how that relationship unfolded. There's some interesting stuff in there. I'm not going to be able to add any more than what you'd find in there. And I haven't looked into SoftBank as an investment. I know Jean-Pierre Verster, who I originally kind of got some information about Prosus from, has been digging into SoftBank. I believe he owns SoftBank, so you might try to find out anything that he's shared in the interwebs. Jean-Pierre Verster. Did you add anything new to your buy list from the latest round of 13Fs? I didn't. I'd say the biggest thing I got from the latest round of 13Fs was a nudge to take another look at Micron. Kind of put aside any price anchoring that I'm doing with Micron, having bought in around 34, 35, and take a look at it again with fresh eyes. So how are you doing with creating a list of guru investors that are also managing smaller amounts of money? Yeah, I haven't actually put pen to paper with this yet. I kind of have it in my mind where there's different places where I've asked you guys who your favorite managers are that are managing smaller sums. And I just need to go in and aggregate that and try to figure out, how have these investors done over the last 15 years or so, to, try to vet them to see, okay, are these investors actually people I want to add to my list to look at their 13Fs every quarter. But I haven't made a whole lot of progress with that yet. Do you remove your maximum limit and keep investing in Alibaba, or do you keep buying something like Topicus, which keeps going up? So I have not bought into Topicus. Yeah, I'm not going to remove my maximum limit, and here's why. So if I decide, all right, I'm going to have 20% bets, okay? Max that I'm going to put in is 20% at cost into a company. If I decide I'm going to, change that as the stock price falls, you get into some emotional, kind of hairy situations, I think. Because, you've made an exception where it felt like you had a firm set of rules. It feels like I have fairly firm rules around not making more than a 20% bet in a company. Now that could change tomorrow. That's what I'm comfortable with today, and it's what I've been comfortable with in the past. Now, if I start tweaking that, it feels like a vulnerability, okay? Like I'm, there's this sort of solid investor self, right? And then there's this self that's like, oh, come on, like this thing is dropping, okay? You got to get more. Like, look, it's cheap. It's cheaper than where you bought it, and it's sort of this little dude on my shoulder that feels emotional, right? It's trying to sway me through emotion, like this FOMO, right? I don't want to miss out. The price is dropping. Well, yeah, the price is dropping, but I made a commitment to myself not to make more than a 20% bet on the company. So if I break that commitment to myself, I leave myself vulnerable to more emotional decision making. Like if the price continues to drop, right? Say I buy in at 150. What if it goes down to 100, right? What if it goes down to 75? I mean, in the markets, there's nothing that's really preventing things from dropping, a lot more than you think might be justified by the underlying business. So I don't really want to get in to that area where I'm, sort of making exceptions on some rules that I think should be fairly firm in my investing approach. So I'm going to probably stick with that 20% bet. But again, like I said, I'm still feeling into what I want to do with Alibaba. But again, I don't feel any pressure, right? I think it's bad when you act because, you feel some time pressure to do something. That's when we make decisions that aren't intelligent. So I'm just allowing myself to, I'm letting my gut figure out, okay, how do I want to proceed here? What happens to a stock when a company gets bought or liquidated? Yeah, so for example, when Whole Foods got bought by Amazon, the shareholders of Whole Foods were issued, like a fraction of Amazon stock. Okay, it was correlated with, what Whole Foods was bought with compared to what the Amazon stock price was at that time. So that's one thing that could happen when a company gets bought. You could get the stock of another company. When a company gets liquidated, typically what happens is all of the assets are sold, and then the debt holders are paid off first. And then the preferred stockholders, if there are any preferred shares, or if there's a preferred class of stock, and then the equity holders would get paid off. So you've got this sort of order of who gets access to the cash from those assets first, who gets paid off first. So that's kind of a quick answer to that. You've made it clear that you will not attend any investors' day in order to stay as unbiased as possible towards the company. Do you feel the same way about an annual meeting? Could there be circumstances where you decide to attend the annual meeting or vote your shares by proxy? Yeah, so I've been to the Berkshire Hathaway annual meeting, and I was a Berkshire shareholder at that time. And I have no pause for going to a Berkshire annual meeting because I know Buffett is not trying to sell me on buying Berkshire Hathaway stock, right? That's just not how he operates. But I'd want to know, am I going to an annual meeting where the, CEO, the management team of that company are very good salespeople? Why do I want to go to this? Is it to learn? Right? That's why I would go to a Berkshire Hathaway annual meeting. Not just to learn about Berkshire Hathaway, but to learn how to be a better investor. So that's why I would attend a meeting. Do I think it's going to make me a better investor? And probably most companies wouldn't make me a better investor by going to the annual meeting. So that's an easy no. How many hours a week do you prioritize to reading? It varies a lot. Most of my reading I do through Audible these days, just because I have 2 kids, and it's rare that I have time to myself to sit down and look at something. But yeah, a fair bit throughout the week I listen on Audible. So that's been great. I'm so grateful for that service, Amazon. Thank you for the many ways that I take money out of my pocket and put money into yours. Thoughts on Geo. So this is the private prison company, I believe, that Michael Burry bought recently. It's not a company that I would ever want to be an owner of, purely from a values/ethics perspective. So I don't have any thoughts other than those. Did you catch any big fish on your vacation? Yeah, I went to Cape Cod recently. I did not go fishing. Okay, I'm disappointed to say that. I don't think my kids would have the patience to go out and spend hours on a boat fishing at the point we are now. Hopefully soon they may be more interested in that, or I'll just decide, okay, this is my vacation. So, or at least this is the one day on my vacation that I get to do what I want to do, and you're coming fishing. So maybe next time. Have you looked into Quadian? I have not. It looks vaguely familiar. PE of 1.3, so clearly a deep value play, but no, I haven't looked at it. In your view, what would be the impact on the recent data privacy laws passed by Chinese government on Alibaba? Yeah, I'm gonna take a pass on this one now. Maybe I'll kind of wrap this into my next Alibaba video. But on the last question, why is the market overreacting? The market is made up of humans, okay? And that's what humans do. They overreact because of fear and greed. This is just how humans are. That's the best answer to why. It's just how we're wired because of emotions and desires and fear and greed, ego. What's your 10 cap valuation for Baba? I haven't sat down and done a 10 cap valuation for Baba. I've talked enough about my thoughts around whether to add or just stay put. Do you own index funds of ETF? I think that's index fund or ETF. Are you all in single stocks? So I don't own any index funds or ETFs. I have no problem with people owning ETFs. I think it's probably a great idea for most people, which is what Buffett says as well. I'm testing a magic formula portfolio, and I own, about a handful of individual stocks. That's really how I've chosen to focus my investment approach. Would you ever consider being the owner-operator of a publicly traded holding company like Buffett is with Berkshire? Probably not. So with Buffett, Buffett from an early age was obsessed with investing, right? With researching individual companies. It is his passion. It's not my passion, okay? I don't want to spend my life, certainly I don't want to spend my life managing other companies, right? And I know, Buffett and Munger, they don't really do that. They've created a culture there where they're kind of an umbrella, and there's all of these independent businesses that operate under the Berkshire umbrella. But, a holding company, that it doesn't really interest me. Yeah. I would rather just be, Brad over here who's managing his private account and just run with that. I don't have to answer to anyone. I don't have to deal with managing people. That is not what I want to spend my time doing. What's your call on Twitter? Do you think it's a good bet? I don't even know where Twitter is right now in terms of price. I think Twitter could be very interesting from an investment standpoint over the next 5 to 10 years. I just don't have enough conviction that it's going to be a great compounder from where we are today. I don't think Twitter has proven that they can kind of flip on the revenue generation switches. But I'm curious to see it. I'm watching it. I'm watching what they're doing with Twitter Spaces, and I think they're allowing people with bigger followings, like over 10,000 followers, to experiment with some different monetization approaches. But we're in the very, very early stages of Twitter figuring out how to really get the cash flowing in. So I'm perfectly happy waiting and seeing how that plays out, maybe getting in a couple years down the road. Do you own Shinnikin? And if yes, how big is your position? I do own Shinnikin. It's a very small position. It's in my daughter's retirement account. So that's the answer to that. Do you buy stocks on a monthly basis or as a lump sum whenever you find something you like? The second, lump sum. So I'm waiting for obvious kind of easy bets to come along, and they don't come along very often, maybe once or twice a year. So definitely not on a monthly basis. I just let it pile up, and when I find something I really like, I go big. Thoughts on Shinnikin? I haven't looked at it recently, so I'll pass on that one. Shinnikin it's like a 10-year bet. Okay, I don't feel the need to track it every quarter. I think, for me, that's probably a mistake to track it every quarter because, it can nudge me to do things that aren't in my best long-term interest in my portfolio. So that's how I see that. Not really a question, but take a look at Xero, Xero. On the New Zealand exchange. I wonder if Tom has looked into this one. Looks like it started at 15 million and now it's 22 billion. Yeah, that would be one to add to my 1,000 bagger list. Thanks for pointing that one out. Autohome provides the largest online e-commerce platform for the sale of new and used vehicles in China. Let's see where the question is. Given this ownership structure, does it strengthen the moat? Yeah, I don't know. This would have to be something that I'd have to dig into, or someone else would have to really dig into to understand all of that. Yeah, I'm going to pass on that one. But thanks for the question, Timothy. What percentage annual return would be considered a successful long-term return? What would be your definition of long-term? Yes, to me, long-term is probably 15 years or more. 20 years, 30 years, I'm not sure. Depends if you're talking about long-term with respect to the portfolio, or if you're talking about long-term with respect to individual investments within the portfolio. Percentage annual return. So that's not how I would actually define successful long-term returns, okay? For me, how I would define it is, what is my goal? And did I achieve that goal in terms of money, right? Raw money in my account, asset value. So yeah, that's something I'm coming around to just recently. Because I think if you're talking about success in terms of annual returns, you're really falling into the comparison game. And, that's a zero-sum game, right? There aren't really any winners in that game. There's always going to be somebody who does better than you, okay? So personally, this is more on my inner scorecard, all right? What's my goal? And did I hit that goal, okay? And it may have something to do with annual returns. It may have more to do with how much was I able to put into my investment portfolio from my earnings, right? That's a lever too. We don't have to solely rely on the maximum annual returns. So that's just how I'm thinking about it in this moment. And I may have to cut out soon, guys. My throat is starting to go here. What should be the maximum percentage of equity one should hold? For Alibaba, I thought I will hold 20% max, but as now the price has further declined a lot. What will be your advice on temptation of increasing the stake maximum to 30%? I mean, I'm not giving advice here. The way I'm approaching this personally is I am hesitant to increase that initial stake in Alibaba, even though the price is going down. I haven't done it yet. And after this Q&A, I actually don't think I'm going to do it. So, but that may change. I'm not looking for any, ways to pin myself down on needing to make future decisions in certain ways. But again, maximum percentage, that's really what you're comfortable with, okay? That's different for each person. For me, it's about 20, and I'm holding in terms of Alibaba at the moment. And yeah, temptation, I mean, you got to be careful with temptation, okay? Because what's temptation, right? That's generally driven by emotion, right? Temptation, desire, emotion. Be rational. Do everything you can to be rational about it. Are you a deep value investor? I'm a deep value, growth at deep value, okay? GADV. Forget GARP. I want growth at deep value. I don't consider myself deep value, but if you can give me growth at deep value, sure, I'll take that all day. Have you checked out Greentown Management? I haven't dug into Greentown Management. Investing with Frank put out a video about that, so check that one out. This is a company that Andrew Rosenblum bought recently of Bonsai Partners. It's a 1 billion market cap company in China. It looks like construction consulting. So I don't have any particular knowledge in that. Who are your non-investing related heroes? Heroes. I have a little bit of trouble with the word hero. I don't really resonate with it. You know, someone that comes to mind, Richard Feynman, a guy I really respect. So we'll go with physicist Richard Feynman. Have you ever done a deep dive into Winnebago Industries? Makes up about 20% of Norbert Liu's very concentrated portfolio. I haven't. It's a very interesting area, industry. I am interested in that industry, but I haven't looked into it. If super investors start piling into Winnebago, you can believe I will spend some time there. I wonder when Norbert Liu bought into that. If you guys know off the top of your heads, let me know in the comments. If you had a gun to your head and had to buy a stock today, what would it be? So assuming I didn't own any stocks, I'd buy Alibaba. Yep. Li Lu and Guy Spear own Bank of America. What is the logic of this position? I have no idea. So banks are completely outside of my circle of competence. So I have no idea. But yeah, I've noticed that. Would you consider investing in a smaller Chinese company? Also, any thoughts on TKC or any Turkish companies publicly traded in the U.S. or over-the-counter? Thanks. At the moment, I'm not looking at smaller Chinese companies. Okay, I'm really just looking at Baba and Tencent. I've got enough exposure just looking at those in my portfolio to China. Turkish companies. So there's a Turkish company I plan to buy this week. Okay. I'm going to put more out about that. Most of you probably know. For those of you who have been following me, what that company is, I think I've just figured out how to access it. So hoping to buy that this week, and then I will let all of you know how that went and which company that was. So wish me luck. All right, guys, we made it through all of the questions. Thank you for putting the time and the thought in to these Q&As each week. Really appreciate you guys. This wouldn't happen without you. And it keeps me, questioning what I think I know and keeps me on my toes. So it's a huge value to me, a huge service to me that you guys engage with me in these Q&As. So thank you all, and I will see you in the next video. Take care.